How you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So we're going to discover the power of your mind and how it can change your gene expression. These are those rhombohedron crystals in your pineal gland. When those crystals become electrically activated, all of a sudden they start calling energy back to them, and they begin to build their own electromagnetic field. Now the body can begin to regenerate and repair itself, and now you can begin to affect the nature of reality. We're seeing common people around the world becoming supernatural with a little understanding of how extraordinary we truly are. Nobody changes until they change their energy. Change your energy, you change your life. We have to fire and wire and build a model of understanding. The moment you start feeling whole, your healing begins. Common people around the world are doing the uncommon when they follow this formula. They're creating new opportunities. They're healing from childhood scars and wounds. They're having mystical experiences, and they look just like you. Broadcasting a very coherent signature of electromagnetism all around you. When the brain is incoherent, when the heart is incoherent, we experience separation and we have a poor signal, so we can't connect to the field to create from. And as the person begins to trade those survival emotions like anger, fear, pain, for elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, and love, and they overcome the emotions that keep them bound to their past, present reality. All of a sudden, as they overcome the emotions, they're going to take their attention off the person or problem. And now they're going to begin to weaken the energetic bonds with their past, present reality. And in a sense, they're no longer thinking about that person or problem. They are taking their power back. And now they have energy to heal. Now they have energy to create a new future with. And now they're creating no longer from lack or separation. They're creating from wholeness or oneness. In other words, when they create, they feel like it's already happening. Our research proves that when you change, everything changes around you. You have more energy in your brain to be more present, to make better decisions. Then in a matter of seconds, a person can literally downregulate the gene for disease and upregulate the gene for health. Quite a bit of time researching the pineal gland and how all those chemicals produce a lucid or transcendental experience. And when you apply a mechanical stress and you begin to compress those crystals, the compression of those crystals begins to produce an external electromagnetic field, and the brainwave patterns that are created are called gamma brainwave patterns. And gamma brainwave patterns are associated with superconsciousness or super-awareness. We're seeing common people around the world becoming supernatural with a little understanding of how extraordinary we truly are. People are creating new lives, literally changing their futures. You can program yourself for greatness once you understand the formula. A formula that begins to change the brain, the body, and people's lives. When you sit with yourself and not allow your mind to go to the past and all the problems and all the things and instruct your mind to go to that vision of the future, that's a victory. Come on. That is the overcoming process. We discovered that when you're sitting with yourself and you go past the point where you would normally stop because of your disbelief, you go past that point, that's when the brain changes the most. The days that you show up anyway, and you remember that's the belief in your future, and that's your passion, you will earn that future. And it doesn't take much. Why wouldn't you want to teach your body emotionally what joy feels like so that you can feel that way? Nobody's going to make you feel that way. Oh, you should make you happy. Imagine that. We don't see reality how it is. We see reality how we are. In your brain, and a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. And then with attention, keep installing the circuitry to remember to think that way. I swear your biology will be mapped as a thought. That would be the new voice in your head that said you can. We have to become that pure consciousness, and you can't walk through the door to the quantum field as a somebody. You have to walk through the door as a nobody. Now, consciousness is awareness, and awareness is noticing and paying attention. There's a wonderful thing that happens in the brain when we become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time. That's the moment where we shut the mechanism down of thinking, and by focusing on nothing, on space, there's a recalibration of the nervous system back to more order.
back to more wholeness, back to more oneness. And the closer you get to singularity, to source, to oneness, to wholeness, to absolute, whatever you want to call that, and you're creating from the field instead of from matter, every thought in the quantum produces a frequency. So the thought of your wealth in the quantum should produce the frequency or the feeling of abundance. And if you can experience the feeling of that ahead of the actual event, you're beginning to change information in the field. Keep doing that. Thought objectifies and conditions reality. So you create a thought form, and in time, all of a sudden, you start having these synchronicities and these outcomes in your life.
Take your attention off your body, you become nobody. When you take your attention off all the people in your life and your identity, you become no one. You take your attention off your cell phone, your computer, your car, you're in no thing. If you take your attention off the place you're sitting, the place you need to be, you're in nowhere. If you're not thinking about the past or the future and you're in the present moment, you're in no time. And that's the moment you become pure consciousness. That's the moment you're disinvesting all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality. Now, this three-dimensional reality is real to us because we perceive it with our senses. But the quantum is a realm that exists beyond the senses, and you could only experience it with your awareness. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So then if I said to you, pay attention to it, connect to it, become more aware of it, moment after moment after moment, like a radio dial, your nervous system is tuning into frequencies. That's the moment you're on the bridge to the quantum field. Now you're putting the circuits in place for you to perceive more of it.
Person, and you say, okay, close your eyes, sit in the silence of any external stimulation. Sit your body down like an animal. Here comes the challenge, right? People think when they do this that they're doing something wrong because there's such discomfort that comes with it. But they're in the unknown. They're actually doing it right. People say, I think I'm meditating wrong. I always say, oh, no, you're doing it right. Because when you notice that your body wants to get up and check your cell phone or have a cup of coffee, and you become aware that it's on autopilot and wants to do that, and you say, come on over here, and you return it back to the present moment, you're executing a will now that's greater than the program. We've researched this. Sooner or later, the body acquiesces. Sooner or later, the body is trained to a new mind. And when that happens, there's a liberation of energy. And now there's energy to heal. Now there's energy to create a new life.
Your attention in your heart. That's where your elevated emotions start. When your heart begins to open and you start to feel elevated emotions like gratitude or joy or inspiration, and you breathe and feel those emotions, the heart begins to beat in a more rhythmic fashion.
So if you could work with your body to the point that it trusts you enough to feel so safe that you have conquered it in a certain way that it could actually relax into the present moment. That moment where you're present, if you could begin to work with your heart and start to breathe and start to practice feeling love. Wow. But according to the quantum model, your emotion ahead of the experience, when you combine that clear intention with the elevated emotion and you feel love, your body's so objective that it's actually believing it's living in that future in the present moment.
And it's actually what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. So as you slow your brain waves down, you get into alpha, you're entering the operating system. And that's where you can rewrite a new program. That's where you can rehearse a new script. Some people can get to the point where they're so relaxed that the body's in a light sleep, and yet they're conscious and awake, and now they're in this theta brainwave pattern. And in theta, that's a hypnotic state. We're very suggestible to our thoughts. We're very suggestible to information in that state. And that state then is where we see the most change take place.
Getting my body back into homeostasis and balance, work on my breath. When I breathe, I change my state, practice breathing, work with your body so it can start to relax, so that it feels safe enough to feel something other than that again. And if it takes you 3 weeks, it would be worth it. So then person then starts, okay, I don't really know how to feel gratitude, okay? And our beta shows that you take someone to do that for 4 days, 3 times a day. They make a immunoglobulin called immunoglobulin A. It's your body's natural flu shot. It's the greatest immune chemical we have. 50% increase in the subjects we studied in 4 days. Immunoglobulin A, up 50%. Program your autonomic nervous system to make the pharmacy of chemicals that causes growth and repair to happen in the body.
The way we recount the past is not the way it happened, even if you absolutely think you remember it being that way.
So unbelievable, the way that
Is that every time you overcome yourself a little bit more, the side effect is that you love yourself a little bit more. And so now self-love is no longer about pleasure or having a car. It's something that you're cultivating within you. Imagine feeling so whole that it's impossible to want. I mean, how can you want when you're whole? Because you feel like you already have it. Now, when you reach that point, that's when the magic happens, because now you are worthy to receive. And when you start feeling love, you make a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical called derived endothelial relaxing factor. You know what that is? It causes the arteries in your heart to literally open up. So your heart is going to be filled with blood and oxygen and nutrients. It's physiological. It's going to feel full. And just give yourself an hour or 45 minutes or 20 minutes. Because when you invest in yourself, you invest in your future. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibilities. It is that all of a sudden you're happy for no reason. To show that you can change your brain in 4 days for the better. 80% of 1,000 people had a more than 90% change in their brain for the better just by practicing meditation. With people that have healed themselves of stage 4 cancer, not once, not twice, not 3 times, and 4 times, over and over again. We have people that have healed themselves that were blind, that were deaf, that had tumors, numerous Parkinson's patients, brain injuries. 117 people, and we said, listen, we want you to stop feeling those emotions just for 3 times a day for 15 minutes. We're just going to practice feeling a different emotion. Yeah, I know, but I can't feel it. I know you can't feel it now because you're really good at feeling that other stuff. But if we work with you, just work with us. Turns out 10, 15 minutes of gratitude 2 or 3 times a day, their immune system strengthened by 50%. They made the most robust immunoglobulin, immunoglobulin A, which is the primary defense against bacteria and viruses. The body's getting a boost. There's an internal army now. And turns out that when that occurs, a lot of pain and inflammation goes away and a lot of immune-mediated conditions, from cancer all the way to food allergies and everything in between. So we found out that your thoughts could actually make you well.
So keep thinking differently, keep acting differently, keep feeling differently. That's your personality. Then your personal reality begins to change.
Over and over again, and no different than training an animal. The body is the animal.
Are you training the body that you're in charge? Is that what you're doing?
You're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind.
Yes.
And when you do that, those victories add up, and then all of a sudden, there's a liberation of energy. There goes the guilt, there goes the pain, there goes the whatever. It doesn't matter if it's health, it doesn't matter if it's wealth or success, it doesn't matter if it's a loving relationship, a change in a career, a mystical experience. Whatever it is, the person all of a sudden starts to relax into the present moment. The moment they wake up in the morning and they start thinking of their problems, or thinking in the past. Okay, now every one of those problems has an emotion associated with it. So when they feel unhappy, when they feel bitter, when they feel fearful, now their body's in the past. Thoughts are the language of the brain, feelings are the language of the body. Thought and a feeling, image and emotion, stimulus and response. You're conditioning the body to be the mind of that emotion subconsciously. Now the body is believing it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Why? Because the body's so objective, it doesn't know the difference between the real-life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is creating by thought alone.
Important. The body doesn't know the difference.
Labor for the present moment. And they take their attention off of their body, off of all the people in their life, all of the objects they own, their cell phone, their computer, their car, their house. They're no longer identifying with where they're sitting, where they need to be, where they live, where they've lived in the past, where they need to go. And they're not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past. They're dissociating from everything physical and material, everything known. That is the exact moment we call getting beyond yourself. Okay? Now, that unknown is the perfect place to create from. So in the process, no different than any rehab. In our first 2 days of our event, really, people they're basically rehabbing from their emotional states and their habits. And they're sitting in the presence of that discomfort, right? And the discomfort is because the body is leaving the known. But
If the body has been conditioned to be the mind, the moment you take it outside of its familiar territory, it's going to start telling you, Ed, why don't you quit? You know, people just get up when they do the meditation. They believe that thought as if it's true. Now, the question is, what's on the other side of that thought? It may have taken them 18 months, but they never missed a day. Why is that essential? Because there were days where they felt so bad in their body, so sick that they didn't feel like doing their meditation, but they did it anyway. There were days they had so much doubt because their condition was actually worsening and they could have succumbed to their doubt, but they did their meditation anyway. There were days that they were in such incredible fear because the doctor told them it was 3 months and it would be over, and it was the 3-month period. And they had every reason to not do their meditation, but they did it anyway. They could have said, I don't have enough time, I have kids, I got schedules. They found time to do it, and it was the overcoming that was the becoming process.
Becoming.
And when they became that person, what is the side effect of your own personal transformation? For example, most people, when they have a physical health condition, the moment they notice there's a change, like in pain, in something, in their sleep, whatever it is, there's some change, they make the connection right away, and that's when it's the dog on the bone. Now they're doing it twice a day, not because they have to, because that's their medicine. And I have sat with the scientists that have come to our events. I asked them to participate in a week-long event, and the one guy who's looking at the virus outside the cell, I said to him, well, how is this going to change? How is this going to change the way you do research? He said, this is my medicine. I've seen what it does. And people say, oh, are you saying meditation actually can cause your body to be resistant to viruses? I said, no. I'm not saying that. The data's saying that.
I was learning how to overcome some emotions that are connected to the hormones of stress. And I was firing and wiring different circuits in my brain by repetition. And over time, the more I fired and wired, the more I was installing the neurological hardware in my brain.
So I removed all negative talk, self-talk, people around me. I set boundaries. I wouldn't answer the phone. That was a big one. So anyone that did not believe in my dream and my vision could not be part of my life.
How many people understand this? Now, number one, her commitment and her purpose to be healed is greater than her commitment or purpose to be liked. And she has to put herself first, because if she compromises, she gives a piece of herself, and you keep doing that, before you know it, you don't know who you are any longer. Yeah?
Yeah.
So she does that with the understanding that she's going to make very selective choices for herself. Yes or no? Do you think that by doing this and doing it well, that she can still love those people? She could still appreciate those people, but there'll come a point in her future when she's at a point where there'll be no longer any tug any longer, because she's overcome those final emotions that keep us connected to those people. You understand?
So people that were toxic to me are no longer in my life.
Sounds like mental rehearsal to me. Excellent.
Redesigned my life, so I looked at it like life by design and not by default. I wasn't going to default anymore in my life. Basically, I can walk now, I can run. I'm living a full life. I can drive my car.
On your mark, get set, go! Woo!
And basically, I feel not just a better version of myself, but a whole reincarnation of myself.
See that on a brain scan? I can say to a scientist now, watch out. This is going to get really good. We could actually now predict when that person is going to make contact. We could actually induce that state. And that arousal that that person is having is not fear. The arousal is not pain. The arousal is not anger or aggression. The arousal is ecstasy. And their brain goes into these altered states. That person is connecting. that familiar, unfamiliar feeling. They put more of their attention on that field and less attention on themselves. They became more of it and less of them. They lose their sense of separateness, of identity, of their body for a moment of connection.
Oxytocin levels are just elevated a little bit. It's really hard to hold a grudge. You just can't. So if you're willing to forgive, love is the elixir that allows us to forgive. When people really have that feeling of pure love, where they've actually gotten over the emotion, they've already forgiven. Expansive focus and focus on nothing. And the act of sensing space, for some reason, causes us to stop thinking and analyzing. And if you're not thinking and analyzing, you're slowing your brain waves down. And the act of sensing and not analyzing, and not thinking about your brother or your sister or your spouse or your fiance or your children or your coworkers. You're not thinking about your cell phone, your computer, your car. You're not thinking about where you need to sit, where you need to go. You're not thinking about what's going to happen next or what happened yesterday. There's this elegant moment where when you go from a somebody to a nobody, when you go from a someone to a no one, from something to nothing, from somewhere to nowhere, from sometime to nowhere, that's the moment you become pure consciousness, and that's the eye of the needle. And that's when you're no longer aware of the three-dimensional world because you have no attention on it. That's the moment you become pure consciousness.
If you can teach a person how to open their focus and begin to become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, and begin to open up into that blackness, that quantum field where there's nothing physical, and out of all the things they can put their attention on, they're taking all of their attention and placing it on their heart. The next step is to slow your breathing down, and then you breathe in and out of your heart. And what you're doing is you're working with your body so that it feels safe enough to relax into the present moment and switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. And as you begin to breathe in and out of your heart, slower and deeper and more relaxed, as your breathing slows down, your brainwaves slow down, and now the person now is starting to slip right into the autonomic nervous system and into the operating system. Now, let's trade the emotions of guilt, of shame, of unworthiness, of pain, of suffering, of anger, of fear, of hostility, of judgment, of envy, for heart-centered, elevated emotion. And as you breathe, give yourself permission to begin to feel gratitude, appreciation, begin to feel thankfulness, a love for life, a joy for existence, but doing that independent of any condition in your external environment. In other words, so many people are conditioned into believing they need a reason for gratitude. They need a reason for joy. They need a reason to feel love. They need something outside of them to create that emotion inside of them. And here we're doing the exact opposite. We're beginning to open our hearts and begin to put energy in there. And as we begin to breathe and feel these elevated emotions, all of a sudden the heart starts to become more coherent. And like dropping pebble in very still water, pebble after pebble after pebble in a very rhythmic fashion, all of a sudden, the heart begins to produce an ambient magnetic field that can be up to 3 meters wide. And now, like beating a great drum, frequency that's being created from the heart, that frequency can carry information. And now the person, once energy moves into their heart, they're in the perfect state to create in. In other words, once this creative center opens up, and once it begins to become more coherent, not only are you producing that magnetic field that's beginning to spread out from your body, you're becoming more energy and less matter, more wave and less particle. You'll begin to feel like you're connected to something greater. And when your heart is open, you're no longer experiencing lack, polarity, separation, or duality. You feel connected. Your body begins to believe when you train your heart that your future is actually happening in the present moment because you're experiencing the emotion of your future before it happens.
And your brain and your personality is beating you up. I've had those moments. And you know what? It's David and Goliath. It has always seemed bigger than me because I've given it so much of my attention and so much of my energy. It is bigger than me. But when I no longer pay attention to it, just like not giving my power to it, now I can settle myself back into the present moment, and it's just a thought. And I examine that thought, I look at it, and I become very familiar and conscious of it. And then my brain will say, well, what about this? You did this wrong, it's too late, give up. And then I address that thought. Now here's my question. 45 minutes of doing battle with your personality and continuously choosing love and unfolding deeper into it. If you make the effort to disinvest your attention and energy out of Goliath and pull energy back to you, is it possible that the next meditation that you have could be the easiest meditation for you to connect? Is it possible? So, yes or no? There's a book that was one of my favorite books I ever read. It's called The Red Lion. And The Red Lion is a great story of an initiate that murders a alchemist and drinks the Philosopher's Stone, drinks the Red Lion, the elixir of life that causes immortality. And he wasn't ready to drink this Philosopher's Stone. He wasn't of the right consciousness. And when he drank it, he never forgot any of his lifetimes. And he saw all his demons. And this book is this journey of this soul through different levels of every single lifetime you can imagine that you and I can relate to. And he runs into secret society, and he becomes initiated. And there's a chapter in The Red Lion called the Kill Cure. And I ask my children to read that chapter every year. Every year they have to read that chapter because the initiate sits down in front of a statue, an inanimate statue, and his job is to animate that statue and bring it to life. Are you with me? And for years, he wakes up in the morning, makes his tea, has his breakfast, and then all day, he's putting his life force and his energy into animating this particular statue. And after years, he notices it swallows. And he notices it moving its finger. And the moment he starts to realize that he could take something inanimate and bring it to life, he gives it more of his attention and energy. Are you with me still? Until it is a walking, talking being. Now here's the problem. This walking, talking being is his altered ego. And he doesn't know it. And it is abusive, it is disrespectful, it is controlling, it is arrogant, it is mean-spirited. And every time he reacts to it, it takes a little bit of his energy. And over time, he loses all of his life force because he's got so much attention on this thing. And this creature is saying, come on, hate me. And he's provoking him because he knows that the more he reacts, the more he's giving his energy to him. And now he's on his last breath. And he has the realization at the very last minute that it was him that brought it to life, and it was the extension of his altered ego. And he makes the decision from that moment on to no longer pay attention to it. And it now is trying everything to get a rise out of him. And he is aware of the initiation. And over time, he keeps his attention off it, and the thing starts to wither. And he takes all of his power back, and he uncreated the very thing that he created, and he no longer had an altered ego afterwards. You understand, yes? You give it power, you give it attention, it gets bigger. If you just know that you got to move through those layers, and it is a journey, and you're doing it right now, and you get on the horse because you make the decision that this is the moment, And when your body gets frustrated and it gets emotional and you go in the high beta, that is the defining moment for you to settle your brain and body back down into the present moment and unfold back into possibility. And I have done it tediously for hours. And just when I thought I couldn't go any further and I said, I'm done, you go a little further. And that's when you step into the unknown and it just falls away. And you will say exactly what I say every time it happens. That was so worth it. And now, you don't see it as Goliath anymore. You just see it as a part of you that you used to be that now you have dominion over. So have you ever heard me say that emotions are bad? No. Have you? No. No, emotions are the end product of an experience. So then, do I react in my life? Yep, I do. But the question is, how long are you going to react? That's the real question. Because if you keep that emotional reaction going on for an extended period of time, sooner or later it'll become your identity. And then people say, why are you so bitter? Why are you so frustrated? Why are you suffering so much? And your brain, in that emotion, you're in the emotion, which means you're in the chemical residue of the past, is going to call up the event because you're emotionally connected to it. And you're going to say, I'm this way because of that past experience. So then, imagine what I do with people. We have people that have been abused. We have people that have been traumatized, that have been assaulted. We have people that have had very, very difficult pasts. And have you ever heard me say to revisit the event? No. Have you ever heard me say that? No. Never do we need to revisit the event, because once you do, you open the box. But what we want to do is overcome the emotion, because that's just what's lasting from the event. So you sit a person down, and the moment you sit them down, what do you think the body's going to do? It's going to look for something to recreate that emotion, because that's the person's identity. Are you with me still? And they're noticing that they're hot, and they're irritated, and their stomach is twisting. And all of a sudden, it's a group of sensations, a group of feelings that they have called all along frustration. But the different sensations, the moment you name it, it becomes an emotion. But what it is just bodily sensations. It's energy that's stuck in the body. So the body is looking to go back to the past. It's believing it's in the past. Are you with me still? So if the person becomes aware that their body is doing that, and like training an animal, allow the body to feel that emotion and then settle it down into the present moment. When you settle it down into the present moment, the body starts to trust the present moment and move out of the past. And there's a release of energy. Then the body goes, well, wait a second, what's going to happen in the next moment? And it starts doing that. And it starts to try and anticipate the future. And you settle the body back down into the present moment. And every time you do that, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind, and your will is getting greater than the program. And all of a sudden, you start to lower the volume to that emotion. And when you begin to break the addiction to that emotion, the side effect of breaking that addiction is called joy. It's called freedom. All of a sudden, the body's saying, I don't want to be tormented anymore. Now, does that mean you shouldn't grieve over things that you lose? Grieving is a biological process. It's neural pruning. It's a death of circuitry. It's a death of emotions. It's the absence, a void of something in your life. And that's important, but in grief, sooner or later, you got to come to a greater understanding about death, a greater understanding about loss, a greater understanding so that you can adapt to those conditions. Every time I sit with someone and they start complaining about their life, and I let them go for a few minutes, and then I go, oh. You know what I say to them? You only complain about your life when it's not working. And the emotion that you're feeling right now is keeping you connected to the past. You never do this when your life is working.
And so I don't have a problem with moving through the stages of emotions. But I also know that what a person really wants more than anything else is to be free. People want to be free. And I have witnessed transformation on every culture, on every skin color, every shape, every size, every age. I've witnessed it. And the same radiance that takes place in a person's face, a light behind their eyes, a different physical presentation of their face is eminent. It's real. And that person has worked to overcome themselves. And so it's not that we shouldn't feel emotions. We should feel those emotions and feel them completely. And like a child, get over it though. And just let it out and then go. When we witness people analyzing their life within some disturbing emotion on the brain scans, over and over again, we saw their brain getting worse. Just worse. And I would go, excuse me, Hector, what the hell were you doing in there? Oh, I was just caught up with my ex and the kids. And well, yeah, I want you to know that that's making your brain worse. And so then when they start reasoning that, and they understand, I'm not going to give them the answer to their problems, because when a person is suffering, what are they looking for? They're looking for me to take them out of their suffering, and I can give them the answer, the correct answer to their problems, and they will argue against me. They will argue the entire time. No, but. Well, and no, what I just say, take the ride with me. Give me 4 days. Give me 5 days. Cross the river. Get beyond yourself and get beyond that emotion. And the memory without the emotional charge is wisdom. And that's the name of the game, because the soul can't go to the future, can't create a new adventure, can't journey back to source if you're living by some emotion that's keeping you in the past. The soul doesn't even know what to dream about. It can't, because it's seeing the future through the lens of the past. So then when the person starts coming up against themselves and they're sitting there and you say you create your reality, all right, well then I'm going to have a thought about what I want, but they can't control their thoughts. That's because their body's influencing their mind. So the only way they're going to begin to liberate energy is to be still and to know that they're God, to be greater than their body. And every time they settle it back into the present moment, they're lowering the volume to that emotion, and now they become the mind. And the body is no longer the mind, and when the body is finally free, they'll see possibilities they never saw before. I've seen it too many times. And all of a sudden, all that person wants to do is be in the present moment and become more happy. They want more of that. But living in guilt or grief or shame or unworthiness, I had someone tell me they lost a loved one the other day. And I said, well, okay, how long have you been grieving? Oh, about a year. Oh, really? Okay, well, suppose it was you that left and you were looking at the person you loved moping around for a year. What would you say to them after a year if you truly loved them? Get over it and have a happy life. I'm doing great. You should make yourself happy. You really love me? Live a happy life. That would be the greatest testament of love for each other. Because if you're suffering, then you're making this hard on me. And so then we always have to update our versions about reality, because it's the only way that we adapt. Don't believe everything you've read or heard. It just may not be the truth. There's always a greater truth that you and I can begin to investigate. Surely someone in eternity has had a similar problem as you and I, and they've gotten beyond it. Yes or no? Yes. So study that person. You want to be wealthy? Study wealthy people. Don't just have some panacea that you're just going to get wealthy. Read about wealthy people and find out that they lost everything and failed miserably 20, 50 times. But what they had as a characteristic, a quality in their personality, is they were persistent, and they kept changing, and they kept forgiving and letting go of the past and kept going. And sooner or later they ran into it, and when they had all the money they wanted, it was never about the money. It was just about that they could prove to themselves that they can do it. And you and I are no different than that. But if you can't create a future because of some emotion that keeps you in the past, you're going to have to square off with that emotion.
And when you sit down and your body has all those physical sensations and it's getting vigilant and it wants to get up and it wants to move and you're just going, wow. And you're settling it down and you're working with it, you gotta agree with me that something greater in you is climbing out of that body. Something greater in you is awakening. And when you're able to overcome those emotions, truly break the addiction, don't you know that you'll return back to your life and face the person that betrayed you? And you will see a part of yourself that you used to be that you no longer are, and you're not going to have anything else but love for them. In fact, you're going to have compassion for them because you're going to realize how stuck they are, and you're liberated and free. True forgiveness is when you take your attention off somebody because you've overcome the emotion, and that gives them permission to show up differently in your life because you freed yourself and you freed them. And all of a sudden, reality begins to unfold in mysterious ways. And that person shows up and says, forgive me. I was so wrong. And you're over it already. And you're just like, go on with it, man. I'm in a new life. I would have never been in this new life if you didn't betray me. Thank you.
When we do our walking meditations, the whole purpose of the walking meditations is really to embody that person and get really good at doing it with your eyes open. Practice with your eyes open, being relaxed in your heart and awake in your brain. So you get better at it, in your life. So it is an ongoing practice to be able to think, act, and feel differently in the same environment. That's change, right? To be greater than the conditions in your life.
I got diagnosed with a fairly rare cancer. It's called bile duct cancer. And one of the problems with it is that there are no symptoms until your liver starts failing. And for most people that get it, it's already spread. It's too late for operations. And that was my situation. And then it was already in my liver, and around about, I think they stopped counting how many lymph nodes, but I think it was around 26. Without that cancer, I never would have found the unknown. Bile duct cancer, they last under 12 months. Leave me, you are the placebo. And as soon as I read that book, I knew it was wisdom. I felt it physically that this was profound. And I'm a teacher in my life, and I like studying, so I wrote copious notes. I knew I had to repeat to remember, because it is easy to forget, and new information you have to work at. And then I was halfway through becoming supernatural when things got worse, and I ended up in hospital, and unfortunately it had spread to my bones, my lungs, and really it was a matter of time, unfortunately. I meditated 2 hours a day. Initially, I will be honest, I did it because I wanted to get better. But very soon, I learned something very profound about the work, which was I no longer masked how I felt. I actually felt happier than most of my friends around me who seemed to have nothing wrong with them. I felt happy. I felt like I was getting to know myself properly for the first time, understanding who I truly was and moving towards that beautiful sense of your higher self. I learnt to just look forward to it and feel so brilliant out up there. Several months of doing that, feeling good, feeling relaxed and happy, despite the diagnosis. And what I got scans, and it wasn't an immediate result. I could see that the drugs weren't working. They always fail in the end. It's just a matter of time with this one. Community, and she wrote in capital letters, change, change, change. And I loved that because she reminded me what I already knew, that this is about transforming. And I was in hospital again. I got pancreatitis. My liver went a little bit wrong. And they had to do early scans because they had to scan for that. And it turns out those scans were totally clear. I was in a meditation, I was in the unknown, and I saw a vision of myself looking all my ages, looking young, looking old, and I was sitting with everybody I'd ever loved. I couldn't see them, I could just see me with light on me, and I looked at me, and I turned round and went, "Come on, you're almost there." And I was almost there. I was actually, I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, and that's, that was hard won. I had to meditate for several months where I didn't have those experiences. But I remembered what Dr. Joe said, be satisfied with your efforts. So I didn't get disappointed with myself. That was how I would have been before, quite harsh on myself. I'd learnt that doesn't help and it's not loving to me. But the way I actually found out, the doctors knew, but they didn't bother telling me. I don't know why. And I've got a hospital app, and they put letters, doctors write letters every time they see you, and Claire is in complete remission. And it was an unexpected way to find out. I did not expect that. And I wake up every day now with a sense of awe about what life truly is and our potential. And I know that if I can do it, everyone can do it. And it's the law. He said it's the law. It has to happen. And that in December I carried that everywhere with me. It's the law. It's got to happen. So the world outside has a different view of things at the moment, but we've learned that that's not correct, and that it's the law. It has to happen. And that really inspired me to be optimistic. And I've had a second chance at this absolutely gorgeous miracle of a life. I've discovered that we're all magnificent. I am, you are, everyone is. We waste time thinking we're not when we're fantastic beings, and it's just beautiful to be alive in the present moment every day, and I'm thankful. Thank you. Thank you.
Facing a health condition, this is was a very aggressive health condition. Did she ever give up? Did she ever say, I failed, it didn't work? Even when her values and the cancer was spreading in all different directions, she never compromised her vision. She just kept learning, applying, reapplying, relearning, trying it another way, going again, practicing, changing. Becomes a completely different person, but the journey to her wholeness, to her health, is the lesson. And those of us that are challenged in that way and you don't see the results right away, it is a fork in the road. And you have to make a choice then to cinch in and to recommit and to go again and to be clear and to learn again, to study again and to review again. And she went on an amazing journey. She taught you that you could heal metastatic cancer. She taught you that she found the cure for cancer. She found the cure for cancer, and it's within you.
You can do this.